so much of this seems like it's going to hinge in court on this idea of, if these two companies merge, the creation of a new fourth wireless carrier with those assets that Dish is going to take over. You certainly have a dog in this race, given the fact that you'd like to be able to maybe perhaps buy some of those assets over Dish, where Boost is concerned. How would you expect this to play out?
I think that's a really important point, but I think the point you've got to have a look at when you go back and see how this process has played through, the Department of Justice actually disagreed with the FCC. The FCC said that the divestiture of Boost alone would be enough. The Department of Justice came in and said, well, hold up for a second. We don't think that that is enough. We actually want a fourth competitor to stand up. So that's when John Ledger got on the phone to Charlie Ergen and said, hey, by the way, I'm going to need you here. I'm going to need you to stand up a fourth network. So the whole matter comes down to one thing, and that is the judge is going to be looking at this, as you said, and rightfully said, is Dish truly going to be able to be a fourth competitor? Well, the first answer to the question is, from the day that the merger closes, there's no way in the world they can. There's no way in the world they can put that infrastructure up in place. So now the question becomes well, I mean, you just simply can't put up a network the day the merger closes. If it closed January 1, these guys are going to need at least till 2021, 22, I would argue 23. So the judge has now got to look at this and say, OK, if I believe that the merger is going to go through, I've got to believe that Dish is going to be able to be that fourth competitor. And if history is a lesson, that's a big question. And the problem you've got with the question is that the judge is going to have to sit there and say there are 9 million prepaid subscribers, there are 30,000 employees in these dealerships, and there are small independent dealers that are going to have to come along for the ride, and they're going to have to take the risk that Charlie Ergen and Dish can actually do this. And I think that's way too big a risk for them to take.
Right. I mean, and not to mention the capital outlay that he's going to have to commit to, and the numbers a lot of people say don't add up. All that said, Peter, it just sounds like you're a sore loser. I mean, you wanted this asset. Would you have done any better with it? Would you have been a fourth competitor? Where were you going to get the money?
You know, the interesting thing is to say that I'm the fourth loser, or I'm the loser out of this, is kind of a little bit disingenuous when you're actually talking about...
I said sore loser, not fourth loser, just a sore loser.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you look at us being a sore loser, you know, the real losers in this are the dealers, are the networks. You know, I've got a great family and a great life. I'll go on and continue to live that great life and great family, and I've got a great MVNO business outside of America. But you know who won't have a great life? The 30,000 employees, the 5,000 to 6,000 dealers, and the consumers in prepaid. You know, I sit here fighting very, very hard. It was a long shot for us to be able to get Boost back in the first place. I mean, I'm a realist when it comes to this. But we were willing to step up with my own funds and my own time and my own money, and at both the commercial and professional cost to me, to fight for these consumers. We now have a judge sitting there. He's going to get rid of the hype. The pink-wearing magenta T-shirt guys are going to be left out of the room, and he's going to look at the facts. And if you look at the facts in this, it comes down to one thing and one thing only, and that is the consumer going to be better off from this merger? And the way that it sits today, there's not one person in the industry, in the media, or in that court is going to be arguing, yes, it's going to be better off.
Peter, no matter which way this goes, isn't the most likely scenario that we don't have four healthy, viable competitors in the U.S. wireless market? I mean, I got real questions about whether Sprint can make it if this deal doesn't go through. And you've raised questions about Dish, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got two very weak options. The question becomes is what is the weaker option of the two? And you've got to look at it, and that's got to be Dish. So I sit back and go, okay, Sprint has assets. You know why Sprint has assets? Because there's a company up in Seattle that has literally promised the world to get this merger through. When most smart businessmen would have walked away from this merger, they've stayed with it. They've stayed with it because it has value. So the exact same value that T-Mobile sees, you can't tell me that Comcast, Charter, and other cable operators and tech companies aren't looking at that same value. If the companies were worthless...
but the synergies are enormous, Peter, for them. I mean, the numbers would be nowhere near that for any other potential merger partner / acquirer.
Okay, I'll take your point. Let's just remove the spectrum out of this and argue would they be taking this merger based on synergies alone? And the answer is no. And the other thing is synergies means jobs losses. It means closing stores. So if you look at the synergies they're talking about, I mean, it's one of the effects that you have there. Let's make it clear. This is all about one thing. They want to get their hands on that 2.5. They launched their 5G network, T-Mobile did. They've launched it with a 20% increase in speed. They've launched it with, Metro PC has it out on prepaid right now, 5G. It's a $1,000 phone, which they discounted to $800. the naivety to think that $800 in the prepaid market is an acceptable level for someone to come in. It's like literally telling them they have to buy the golf membership of the club. But by the way, you can actually go and play the game for free once you've ponied up the money. So all of this is just, to me, a farce. And the judge is going to see that. And the judge is going to look at this. And if he truly believes in keeping the consumers in mind, the way that it sits today, it just simply can't work, and it won't work.
Given the conversation we're having right now, Peter, I mean, if you think about the broader, I guess, theme or push here around 5G and the U.S. being a dominant player in the adoption of that technology and those capabilities, it almost sounds like we're talking damned if you do, damned if you don't in terms of competitiveness on a world stage and the ability to roll that out. What's the solution?
I mean, the solution, in my opinion, is simple, and that is that there is no race going on today with the carriers internally. It's a marketing hype. 5G is nothing more than a marketing term. There's no one set standard. There's mid, low band spectrum. We've got, buildings. You don't have buildings. You put a tree up, it doesn't work. There is so much hype going on that the consumers are just getting confused and frustrated about, well, what is actually 5G? So even if 5G became the holy grail that they say it is, I don't think consumers are going to buy it because they don't know what it is because they've been confused.